The 1980s fantasy genre had this bold, reckless energy,
I'll set out in search of the Stygian witches on my own.
where studios approved completely insane ideas with budgets they would never get again.
We will ride with you as far as their shrine.
Put actors into dangerous situations with very little safety protection, and somehow made cult classics that shaped a whole generation's wild dreams about swords, magic, and impractical armor. And very few productions showed that chaos better than one that started with a bear attack and ended with a Playboy photo shoot meant to save the movie at the box office. Number 1. Clash of the Titans moved Greek mythology into Ray Harryhausen's stop-motion workshop, where Perseus gathers magical gifts from arguing Olympian gods, captures Pegasus, beheads Medusa, and turns the Kraken to stone to save Princess Andromeda from becoming food for a sea monster. The movie showed a fascinating clash between old Hollywood craftsmanship and the rise of big blockbuster thinking, as Harryhausen spent months carefully animating creatures frame by frame. At the same time, producers worried about ratings and wide audience appeal, creating tension between artistic vision and commercial pressure. Harry Hamlin locked himself inside his trailer and went on strike when he found out UK censors had changed the Medusa scene to avoid an X rating, switching Perseus from using his reflective shield the mythologically correct way to simply throwing it at her head, which Hamlin knew was completely wrong. Filming stopped while Hamlin refused to give in, and producers even cut power to his trailer to try to force him out, but he gained support from the crew and eventually got the scene rewritten closer to the real mythology, showing how seriously 80s actors took these fantasy roles despite their campy elements. Laurence Olivier brought Shakespearean weight and seriousness to Zeus while dealing with constant technical delays caused by the stop-motion work. His presence gave credibility to a movie about flying horses and mechanical owls that somehow balanced prestigious casting with B-movie charm. What made Titans last was its sincerity. No one joked with the camera or acted embarrassed by the camp. They fully committed to mythological spectacle in a way that feels refreshing compared to modern fantasy's habit of cutting emotion with jokes. The film became Harryhausen's final stop-motion masterpiece, marking the end of an era just before digital effects made his slow, detailed craft outdated, giving the movie a sad beauty as the final breath of a fading art form. Audiences loved the creatures, but were sometimes confused by the sharp tone changes between Olivier's serious performance and the silly mechanical owl comic relief, creating a very 80s mix of high art and low art that would not survive today's focus-tested sameness. Number 2. Beastmaster follows Dar, a mystical warrior born from a cow after witches tear him from his mother's womb, who grows up learning he can talk to animals with his mind before his village is destroyed and he sets out for revenge with a tiger, an eagle, and 2 thieving ferrets. What made Beastmaster feel so clearly 80s was how seriously it treated a hero whose special power is talking to animals, giving it the same weight as Conan's violent sword fighting, all wrapped in a sun-soaked California fantasy look, where everything seemed mythical, but also strangely like hiking trails just an hour outside Los Angeles. Marc Singer built real bonds with the trained animals on set, the ferrets, the eagle, and the Black Panther, which gave the movie an honest connection that computer effects could never match. But it also meant filming days became totally unpredictable when animals refused to cooperate and needed endless, patient retakes. Singer spoke openly about animal welfare during filming, arguing with crew members who were less concerned about the animals' needs, causing delays but eventually improving conditions in ways that reflected wider 80s concerns about ethics and filmmaking. Then there's Tanya Roberts, cast as Kiri mainly because producers wanted someone who would pose for Playboy later, leading to her famous freezing lake dive for topless photos, followed months later by a fully nude spread with lions and the dyed panther, created entirely to rescue the movie from box office failure. The film failed in theaters with only $14 million, but went on to become the most aired movie in HBO history, playing so often on TBS that viewers nicknamed it the Beastmaster Station, turning a financial flop into the kind of cultural reach studios dream about. That change from failure to nonstop cable favorite captured something important about 80s fantasy. These movies didn't need theater success when they could live forever in weekend afternoon time slots, becoming comfort viewing for a generation raised on channels that actually showed movies instead of reality shows. Number 3. Barbarian Queen begins with a wedding that turns into total village slaughter as Lord Ara's forces kill everyone, enslave the groom, and violently attack the bride's younger sister before 3 surviving women begin a revenge mission straight into the tyrant's city wearing little more than leather strips. Roger Corman produced the film in Argentina as part of his low-budget sword and sorcery production line, shooting in brutal heat with almost no safety rules, creating conditions where the cast's real physical pain became impossible to separate from what viewers saw on screen. What made this pure 80s exploitation was how it gave video rental audiences exactly what they wanted: graphic violence, non-stop nudity, and revenge stories that made no effort to seem deeper than raw genre thrills made for late-night cable and VHS shelves. Lana Clarkson became a cult figure as Queen Enya through total commitment to physically demanding scenes, especially a notorious torture rack sequence that became one of the most infamous moments in 80s sword and sorcery for its harsh, unfiltered depiction of suffering. The mostly female warrior cast filming in Argentina formed close bonds to survive intense subject matter, uncomfortable costumes, and rough terrain, with actresses, including future director Kat Shea, often improvising dialogue that added surprising personality to characters that could have been completely flat. Dawn Dunlop, playing the traumatized sister Taramis, had to show deep psychological damage through emotionally draining takes, while the low-budget reality meant constant dehydration and burned skin from revealing costumes during shoots that stretched late into exhausting nights. UK censors removed more than 5 minutes of graphic violence and sexual material, while Australia banned the film outright during the video nasties panic, pushing uncut copies into underground tape trading circles where it became forbidden treasure for genre fans. The movie sparked outrage for its explicit portrayal of violence against women, including torture scenes and assault imagery, causing moral panic among parent groups who saw it as especially disturbing exploitation, even by 80s standards. What made Barbarian Queen stay memorable was its readiness to go further than most sword and sorcery films in showing brutal material, earning it a reputation as one of the most extreme examples in a genre already known for pushing limits.
Number 4. Slave Girls Beyond Infinity updates the story of the most dangerous game for the space age. Escaped prisoners Doria and Tissa crash land on a jungle planet, where their friendly host Zed is revealed to be a man who hunts humans for sport inside a fortress decorated with the heads of his past victims. The production became famous for casting a softcore film actress as the lead, Doria, then firing her just 3 days into filming when the director realized dramatic science fiction acting needed different skills, creating chaos in the middle of production as Elizabeth Caton stepped in and spent weeks wearing metal bikinis in intense jungle heat. What made this movie feel completely 80s was how it took classic pulp adventure and mixed in space guns and revealing costumes, creating the exact formula that ruled direct-to-video sci-fi, where excitement mattered more than budget or smooth production. The small cast grew very close while enduring harsh desert shooting conditions, using humor and friendship to survive extreme heat and exhausting schedules on a tiny budget, reflecting the passion over resources attitude that fueled many cult sci-fi films. Creative fights broke out often between the director and actors over the movie's tone, swinging back and forth between serious sci-fi adventure and over-the-top comedy, leading to improvised scenes and last-minute rewrites that gave the film its messy charm. Local distributors panicked over the mix of bikini-clad violence, resulting in heavy edits or complete bans, depending on the moral fears of each market. While parent groups attacked it as harmful entertainment during the height of video rental culture wars, drive-in theaters and late-night cable channels embraced it as the kind of trashy fun mainstream theaters rejected, finding audiences who truly enjoyed campy genre mixes without needing high production quality, which is exactly why it still survives as comfort viewing for sci-fi fans raised on USA All Night. Number 5. Flash Gordon reworked the classic comic strip hero through Queen's loud, theatrical rock opera style, creating a wildly campy space adventure where a football quarterback is blasted to planet Mongo and brings Hawkmen and Tree People together to fight Emperor Ming's rule, all wrapped in bright colors with absolutely no subtlety. What made Flash Gordon feel like the ultimate 80s creation was Queen's famous soundtrack, which turned every single scene into dramatic glam rock spectacle. Their music added a bold, theatrical energy that perfectly matched the film's refusal to take itself seriously, while still fully committing to the visual experience. The production invited Queen onto the set unexpectedly, which caused tension since the director was playing Pink Floyd music at the time. Still, Queen's contribution became inseparable from the movie's identity and helped define how 80s fantasy embraced modern music styles. Sam J. Jones constantly clashed with producer Dino De Laurentiis over creative control, and eventually refused to return for post-production voice work after being hospitalized following an off-set fight, which led to his voice being entirely replaced without his permission and his career being quietly blacklisted for many years. Brian Blessed brought huge energy as Prince Voltan and famously helped Max von Sydow find the right tone for Ming by advising him to channel terrifying authority through his hands. Blessed's larger-than-life personality helped ease tense moments during the chaotic shoot, while the costume designer refused to read the script and instead forced her own strange ideas, often clashing with the director and adding to a production environment as unpredictable as the finished film. Somehow, the disorder worked. Countries like Singapore and Malaysia banned the movie over imagery seen as cult-like or too intense for families, with ratings boards demanding cuts to Ming's threatening rituals that often came too late for cleaned-up releases. What's striking is how Flash Gordon fully embraced camp decades before camp became accepted in superhero films, finding fans who loved its fearless commitment to colorful absurdity, making it feel almost revolutionary compared to today's darker, overly serious genre movies, where everything must feel grounded and realistic.
Number 6. Deathstalker sends a sword-swinging warrior through brutal tournaments where fighters literally cut each other apart, competing for access to the throne and royal privileges, delivering Roger Corman-style exploitation that pushed every limit while running on extremely small budgets. The movie fully embraced a deliberately campy sword and sorcery tone, with lead actor Rick Hill giving himself completely to the cheesy hero role despite rushed filming schedules. His clear love for the genre helped create the exact kind of straightforward adventure that came to define direct-to-video fantasy. What made Deathstalker feel so deeply 80s was its total lack of restraint. Excessive nudity, exaggerated violence, medieval worlds mixed with out-of-place details, all presented with no attempt to pretend it was anything more than pure entertainment for audiences who knew exactly what they were signing up for. Director James Spartalotti faced non-stop creative fights with producers who demanded more nudity and exploitation to cash in on the Conan-inspired sword and sorcery boom, leading to a final cut that focused on selling shock and spectacle over clear storytelling. The film featured constant nudity and revealing outfits, creating the heated atmosphere common in low-budget fantasy movies, where putting marketable material on screen mattered far more than actor comfort or story logic. Long fight scenes left the cast exposed to harsh sun in costumes that offered no protection, with real falls and dehydration becoming normal dangers on Argentine locations that were never officially addressed. Distribution immediately sparked censorship fights across many countries, with studios cutting explicit scenes to meet ratings rules, UK censors removing violent content, and Australia banning the movie entirely. German authorities pulled VHS copies during the video nasties panic. The harder officials tried to suppress it, the more fans hunted down uncut versions through underground trading, accidentally creating perfect word-of-mouth promotion that turned censorship into a badge of honor for hardcore genre fans. Looking back, what stands out most is how Deathstalker was completely banned for material that barely shocks today, showing how dramatically cultural standards have changed in just 40 years.
Number 7. The Ice Pirates imagines a future where water is the most valuable resource. It follows cocky pirate Captain Jason and his crew, including the android Milo, through increasingly ridiculous combinations of sword fights and rocket battles as they try to rescue a princess from her tyrannical father's fortress. What made this pure 80s sci-fi was its joyful mix of space western style, pirate adventure tropes, and non-stop slapstick comedy, never pretending to be sophisticated, just fully embracing absurdity as its guiding rule. Robert Urich, usually known for serious TV roles, surprisingly tried comedy, but struggled to balance broad physical humor with heroic presence. His method acting instincts clashed with the exaggerated camp tone his co-stars fully leaned into. The production became famous for accidents during physical comedy, including a stuntman accidentally dropped during a sword fight rehearsal, who avoided serious injury but forced immediate safety changes and legendary behind-the-scenes rewrites. Elaborate practical effects for spaceship interiors and water-themed props constantly broke, unexpectedly soaking actors mid-take and causing delays that somehow added to the chaotic energy, which worked perfectly on screen despite frustrating everyone. The cast and crew bonded over shared technical disasters, keeping humor alive through constant setbacks, which became enduring convention stories about the passion behind low-budget sci-fi when enthusiasm made up for limited resources. Mary Crosby gained unexpected cult fame as Princess Karina, with fans quoting her lines exactly and giving her niche recognition far beyond her previous soap opera work, proving that even small roles in beloved cult films can leave lasting impact. The movie's full commitment to looking ridiculous, swinging cut glasses on spaceship decks, treating interstellar travel like Caribbean piracy, never taking itself seriously, completely confused 1984 audiences expecting straightforward space action. No one knew what to do with a movie so committed to its own absurd ideas without leaning into self-aware irony. But that is exactly why it still endures among fans who love films brave enough to be completely silly without apology, long before everything needed to be dark and gritty to be taken seriously. Number 8. Krull mixes medieval fantasy, alien invasions, magical weapons, and space fortresses into one strange genre mashup, where Prince Colwyn gathers a group of misfits to storm the Black Fortress, rescue the kidnapped Princess Lissa from a monstrous beast, and wield the legendary glaive to fulfill an ancient prophecy. Ken Marshall played the serious hero, knowing it would mean long hours of horse riding, carefully choreographed fights, and filming across dangerous iron desert terrain that tested his endurance under heavy medieval armor and brutal heat. Minor injuries added up as he tried to look heroic while delivering increasingly campy dialogue and performing amid elaborate special effects that became more disorienting each week. The ambitious visual effects were groundbreaking in idea, but notoriously tricky to pull off, with stop-motion animation requiring painstaking frame-by-frame work that made filming schedules completely unpredictable. Cast members spent hours waiting while crew dealt with uneven lighting for composite shots, leading to endless retakes that wore everyone down and frayed tempers. Lysette Anthony, playing Princess Lissa, later described the intense psychological strain of filming long abduction scenes in genuinely claustrophobic Black Fortress sets, surrounded by scary animatronic beasts that looked frightening even though they were puppets. Repeated takes of captivity sequences, where she had to show real fear while physically restrained, became mentally exhausting in ways that lasted long after production ended. The film's refusal to stick to a single genre initially confused audiences, expecting something more consistent in tone. But decades later, that same fearless mix of genres became its biggest strength. What looked like a messy film in 1983 now feels like bold experimentation, showing that the real problem wasn't the movie's ambition, but that audiences weren't ready for fantasy that refused to stay in one lane.